Okay, so this is the last video I'll cover. It's the customer loyalty program. Okay, so it says, during the current financial year, Eco Beauty introduced a customer loyalty program that rewards a customer with 1 customer loyalty point for every 10 Rand spent on their products. Each point can be redeemed for a 2 Rand discount on future purchases at Eco Beauty Ltd. During the financial year ended 29 February, the customers purchased products with a total sales value of 1.5 million, which is the standalone selling price of the purchased products. Eco Beauty Ltd estimates that 90% of the points will be redeemed in future. Okay, so let's look at the required, and then I'll explain to you how to think through a revenue question. Hopefully you watch some of the revenue videos that we have. And although it was CTA level, the principles still remain the same, just on a much lower scale, complexity scale. Okay, so I'm going to do part B. So they say, I'm only going to do the numbers. Okay, I'm only going to do the numbers, calculations, but you can look through the solution in terms of the wording that they want. Okay, so they say discuss the accounting treatment of a customer loyalty program in the annual financial statements for the year ended 29 February. Okay, so they say on 29 February, 20,000 points have been redeemed by customers, and the company continues to estimate that 90% of the points will be redeemed in total. Motivate your discussions with calculation. Okay, so let's go and have a look. Okay, so I'm going to do, this is QF. Okay, so with a question of this nature, so what you must know, there's a 5-step model, right, when it comes to IFRS 15. So step number 1, you need to identify a contract with a customer. Step number 2, you need to identify the separate performance obligations. So that's what we need to identify, the separate performance obligations, okay? So in this question, there are 2 separate performance obligations. In this question, there are 2 separate performance obligations. So basically, step 1, identify contract with customer. That's step number 1. Okay, I'm not going to go into all the details, but basically step number 2 is identify separate performance obligations. Step number 3, determine transaction price. Step number 4, allocate transaction to separate performance obligations. Okay, step 5, recognize revenue. Okay, so that is basically what we need to do. Okay, so that is, so number 1, identify contract with the customer. I'm not going to worry about that. Number 2, identify the separate performance obligations. Okay, so there are 2 separate performance obligations. Okay, so the one is purchase of, what was it? What do they call it? The one was, where is that now? Okay, each point can be okay, purchased products. Okay, customers purchased products. So I'm gonna purchase of products, what I wanted to say. Okay, and then the other one is loyalty program. Okay, so that is, how do they spell program? Loyalty program, double M. Okay, so that is basically it. Okay, so that's basically what we have over here. That is the performance obligations. Okay, so that is the performance obligations. So the performance obligations, this here is separate performance obligations. Okay, now we need to work out. We need to allocate the transaction price. Okay, so we need to allocate the transaction price. So the transaction price is 1.5 million. Okay, so that is the transaction price. So step number one, identify contract with customer. Step number two, identify separate performance obligations. Number three, determine the transaction price. They told us the customers paid, the total sales value is 1.5 million. But now this to 1.5 million can't go solely to the purchase of products. Although the customer paid 1.5 million to buy these products, this 1.5 million from a revenue perspective cannot be allocated entirely to the purchase of products. Why? Because when they buy products, they earn points. So this 1.5 million must be split between the product and the points. So this is where that part comes in. Step number 4, allocate the transaction price. Okay, so how are we going to allocate the transaction price? We're going to do it based on standalone selling prices. So we are going to allocate it based on standalone selling prices. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to say stand alone selling prices, and then we will say allocation of transaction price. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do. So let's have a look. So the standalone selling price was given to us 1.5 million. Okay, that's what they told us in the question. During the financial year ended, customers purchased products with a total sales value of 1.5 million, which is the standalone selling price. Okay, so that was given to us. We now need to work out what is the standalone selling price of a loyalty program. So how do we do that? We use what they told us. Okay, so it's one point for every 10 rand spent. So this is how we're going to work it out. Amount spent. Okay, amount spent. Value per what do I have to say? Okay, value per point. Okay, so that is going to be 10 rand. Amount spent is, okay, I'm gonna put it like this. Okay, let's just leave it as value per point. I don't know what to call it. Okay. So you're going to say number of 10 rands in amount. Okay. So we spent 1.5 million. We spent 1.5 million and we get points based on 10 rand. So there is basically 150,000 of those. Okay. So we're going to say number of points per 10 rand. Okay. So there is 150,000 10 rands in 1.5 million. And we get 1 point for every 10 rand. Okay, so this will tell us the amount of points. Number of points. Okay. So therefore, the number of points will be the number of 10 rands in 1.5 million times the number of points per 10 rand. Okay, so there we go. It remains the same. If this was one, if you got 3 points, if you got 3 points, then this would have, if you got 3 points for every, what's happening over here? Okay, just see what's happening over here now. If you get 3 points for every, then it will change, but you only get 1 point for every 10 rand. Okay, then we're going to say value per point, which is 2 rand. Okay, so therefore, cost of points. So the cost is going to be 150,000 times 2 rand. Okay, so it's 300,000 rand. Okay, but okay, okay, but it will cost us 300,000 rand if that is the amount we expect to pay out, but we don't expect 100% to redeem. Okay, percentage to redeem, they estimate that only 90% will redeem their points. So therefore, the cost to us will only be 90% of this. I'm going the long way, can do it much quicker, but it's just to show you the thought process. Okay, just to show you the thought process. So there we go. It is 270. A quick way to have done this was somebody to say 1.5 million divided by 10 times 1 times 1 times 90%. Doing exactly the same thing times 2 rand. Doing exactly the same thing. I'm doing exactly the same thing. You do it in one line. I just went through this whole process to show you the thought process. Okay, so over here, that will equal 270. Okay, so based on standalone selling prices, the total value of this transaction is actually 1.7. Okay, but the actual transaction price is 1.5. So now we need to allocate. The way we allocate, we take the transaction price and we multiply it by each standalone item. Okay, so there we go. So in terms of revenue, what would happen? So there's a 1.5 million. So when we made these sales, okay, without a loyalty program, the sales would have been 1.5 million. But because there is a loyalty program, sales revenue can only be 1.2 million. Okay, so revenue from sale of products is a 1.2 million. Okay, 1,271,186. Okay. The loyalty program, you will recognize revenue as customers redeem. And let's say there's expiry date. Once the expiry date hits, anything that was not yet redeemed can only then be recognized. So the loyalty program, the amount of the loyalty program is recognized as a liability. So the amount of the loyalty program is recognized as a liability, which is called a contract liability. The contract liability will reduce as customers redeem their points. Okay. The reduction in the liability will then be recognized as revenue. Okay, so what's important, this 1.2 million will be recognized as revenue immediately as the sale takes place. That will be recognized as a liability, and we call that a contract liability. Okay, and the contract liability will be reduced and be transferred to revenue as customers redeem. So let's say when that sale took place, the journal would have looked like this. We received money, so it'll be bank. It'll be bank of 1.5 million, 1, 2, 3. That is SFP. Then we would have revenue, and we would have contract liability. Okay, so when the transaction took place. So this is SFP, and this is P&L. What would be the credit for revenue? It would be not 1.5, it would be that over there. Okay, and for it would be that. Okay, so just take note of that. Now, during the year, customers did what you call it, redeem some points. Okay, so during the year, customers did redeem. Okay, so during the year, customers redeemed 20,000 points. Okay, so what is that equal to? So it is 20,000 points divided by the total number of points is 150,000, but we only expect 90%, right? So we don't account for 150,000 points, we account for 90% of 150,000 points. Okay, and the value of the points is 2 Rand. So that equals, so this would equal 20,000 divided by 150 times 90% times 2. Okay, I'll just do over here. Oh, sorry, not times 2, times, we take that price over there, which is 228,814. Okay, so that is what we will recognize now as revenue. Okay. Okay, so that is basically what we will recognize. So during the year, we recognize as follows. So now we can decrease the contract liability and we can increase revenue. So the contract liability will reduce by the number of people that redeemed, and the revenue will increase by the number of people that redeemed. So that will be, so they will say, during the year, 20,000 points were redeemed. Okay, this will be recognized as revenue with a corresponding decrease in contract liability. So that's basically it. So remember, all we just did over here: identify separate performance obligations, identify the transaction price, which is the total 1.5, allocate the transaction price based on standalone selling prices, Okay, there we go. So then we must recognize revenue. Because personal products happen immediately, you recognize the full amount. This happens as and when customers redeem. So therefore, when they redeem, you can recognize the revenue. While they did not redeem, it will stay as a contract liability until the points expire. Once the points expire, then whatever expired will be able to be recognized as revenue. Okay, so that's basically it for your 10 marks. Okay, you can look at the finer details of what they wrote and stuff, or how they wrote in the solution, but ultimately it will come down to this. Okay, so that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Bye bye.